P.SO, Nerd Era, where nerd culture reigns supreme, and I'm checking in to give you my top 3 animated DC films of all time. As you guys may or may not know, I'm a huge fan of DC animated films. One of the things I like about DC animated is that they have maintain a high, consistent level of quality, but on top of which, they tend to create blueprints for the DC live-action films, in my opinion. I feel like DC animated is a place where DC is able to kind of test characters or test ideas or test storylines, and if it works well in the animated world, they can kind of adopt it into live-action film. There's been some really good DC animated films that have come out recently. There's some classics that have come out years ago. I'm a huge fan of the series Young Justice, as well as Justice League Unlimited. I also feel like the original Batman the Animated Series is probably one of the best, if not the best, animated show ever. So I'm just a huge fan of DC animated, and I'm going to bring you my top 3 DC animated films of all time, if you haven't seen these. Alright, let's go and get right into it. Alright, my number 3 pick is Batman, Under the Red Hood. I love this movie. This movie is Batman at his best. It's actually really more of a Robin story, but it's a Batman story. What makes it so great? 2 things: the action and the storyline. The action in this movie is incredible. It's some of the best animated Batman action I've seen. The story, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a lot of twists, there's a lot of turns in it. It's just a really epic story, captivating completely throughout, great 3-act structure. Just a fantastic film, and if you haven't seen it, I highly, highly recommend it, especially if you're a fan of Batman. My number 2 pick for top DC animated films of all time is Justice League, Crisis on Two Earths. A lot of people might be surprised to see this one in my top 3. There's probably going to be a lot of people talking about, oh, why didn't you put this one, why don't you put this one? The reason that I put Justice League Crisis on Two Earths is because I just think it's probably the best Justice League centered film that DC has put out. People are huge Batman fans, right? I'm a huge Batman fan. A lot of people are really big Batman fans, right? Now, we love Batman because he has the intellect and he has the resources and he has the cunning and the fighting skills. He's just super, super resourceful. He's like everything that you want out of a superhero, right? In Justice League Crisis on Two Earths, you get to meet an alternate version of the Justice League where all of the Justice League members are evil. So there's an evil Superman, there's an evil Wonder Woman, there's an evil Green Lantern, there's an evil Flash, and there's an evil Batman. And the evil Batman's name is Owlman. Now imagine if you took all of that cunning, all that resources, all of those skills that Batman has, and you put it into a supervillain. Imagine how diabolical that supervillain would be. And that's what you get in Owlman. And that's one of the reasons why I love Justice League Crisis on Two Earths, is because Owlman is such a formidable villain, and the whole concept of the entire film works really well. And once again, the action is top notch, and it's just one of the best stories and action, in my opinion. So that's my number 2 pick. I'm gonna throw out a couple honorable mentions before I give you my number 1 pick. I want to shout out Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, which was probably one of the first, if not the first, DC animated films ever, and it's a classic. It's just a really great Batman story set in that older Batman animated universe, which kind of set the stage for the modern DC animated universe. Another one I want to shout out is Wonder Woman. The Wonder Woman animated film was one I didn't really expect to be great, and it was phenomenal. The action and the story is really, really good. If you haven't checked it out, give that one a shot. And another one I want to mention is Superman Batman Public Enemies. That's also a really good DC animated film. Just works on all levels. Great Superman action, great Batman action, great story. Alright, so my number 1 DC animated film of all time. Drum roll, please. Flashpoint Paradox. Flashpoint Paradox. I'll say it one more time. Flashpoint Paradox is the best DC animated film of all time. Ask anyone who's seen this movie and they'll probably tell you that they love it as well. I think Flashpoint Paradox set a new precedent with DC animated. Essentially, the time stream gets changed some way, somehow, and you have a different version of Batman, you have a different version of Superman, And Flash is the only person who realizes that the time stream has changed. So he's has to try to figure out how to fix everything. Sounds like a decent plot, but the way it's executed is so excellent. And the action in this film is great because it's almost like they decided to go R-rated because there's like blood and murder, and usually they don't show those in DC animated films. So I guess they realized that their audience is getting a little bit older, a little bit more mature, so they amped up the action to make it a little bit more violent, and it is awesome. The story is great, the action is excellent. Flashpoint Paradox is just my favorite DC animated film, and you know, there might have been other stories that had been better, you know, but altogether, this was just the most impressive DC animated film, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. So, that's P.SO checking in with Nerd Era. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. We're going to be dropping a lot of videos weekly, so make sure you stay tuned. P.SO, Nerd Era. Peace.